Imagine you walk into this place called Farmer's Pets up in Michigan,
Right, okay.
and, you're immediately hit with that really sharp, familiar smell of cedar shavings.
Yeah, that classic pet store smell.
Exactly. You see the rows of brightly colored, uh, bubbling fish tanks right near the checkout. And you can probably hear, like, a couple of kids begging their parents for a goldfish.
A completely normal, everyday scene.
It is wonderfully, completely, almost aggressively ordinary. But, and here's the catch, if you were to walk past that fish room, punch a code into this employees-only door.
Which is always so mysterious anyway.
Right. But you step past that, and suddenly you're past reinforced concrete walls, and you would find yourself looking at a 3-acre containment facility for cryptids.
It is just, it's the ultimate hidden in plain sight operation. I mean, you are walking in to buy a bag of dog food,
Yeah, totally.
and literally 50 yards away, completely out of sight, a mythical creature is being fed raw meat in a custom habitat.
Which is just wild to think about. So, for today's deep dive into our source material, we are looking at this really incredible first-hand account. It's from a YouTube transcript, actually.
Yeah, and it's so detailed.
It really is. It details the daily life of the guy who runs the secret sanctuary. He's managing everything from a miniature Bigfoot to the Mothman.
Just casual, everyday stuff, right?
Just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But our mission today is to explore this bizarre intersection of human empathy and, well, the supernatural.
Yeah, we're really going to examine how caring for the unknown and, frankly, the terrifying reveal some pretty profound insights.
Insights about responsibility, nature, and what it truly means to, keep something safe. Okay, let's unpack this, because the narrator's philosophy of care, it completely flips the script on what you'd expect a monster hunter to sound like.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hear the phrase cryptid containment facility, and your mind instantly goes to, heavy iron chain.
City cages, right.
Exactly. Some dark, damp dungeon type setup. But the narrator insists that running the retail pet store out front is maybe 20% of his day.
Wow, just 20%.
Yeah, the other 80% is managing these creatures, and he flat out refuses to treat them like monsters. He views every single one of them as a rescue.
Right, because these are animals that were injured or maybe displaced by commercial logging operations.
Or they were failed by amateur collectors, people who somehow got their hands on something they had no business owning.
Like exotic pet owners, but dialed up to 11?
Pretty much. And his standard for their care is incredibly high, which is driven by a very specific philosophy.
Which I found so interesting.
Right. He argues that if an animal spends its entire life pacing 10 feet back and forth, you've already failed it.
You've completely destroyed its psychology.
Yes. So he builds these massive custom habitats over the 3 acres of property. We're talking artificial caves.
Underground bunkers,
Yeah.
sprawling flight aviaries.
Exactly. And his ultimate goal, whenever it's actually possible, is release.
Wait, release? Like back into the wild?
Yeah, if they are safe to exist in the wild, he relocates them. He takes them to remote parts of Canada or protected islands.
That is a huge logistical nightmare, I'm sure.
Oh, without a doubt. But if they are too dangerous, they stay permanently. What's fascinating here is the crucial distinction he makes. Dangerous does not equal evil.
Ah, right. He uses that great white shark analogy, doesn't he?
He does. A great white isn't evil for doing what a shark does. It's just a shark.
But you still, you wouldn't want one wandering through an elementary school parking lot.
Exactly. So the dangerous ones stay with him.
I have to push back on this a little, though.
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, it's essentially a secret witness protection program for apex predators. Isn't there a massive level of, arrogance here?
Arrogance.
Yeah. Thinking one guy and his maintenance man, this really pragmatic guy named Roger Sims, can safely contain mythic beasts without a total disaster.
That is a fair point, and honestly, that tension is constantly present in the text. Roger Sims actually serves as the voice of reason against the narrator's extreme empathy.
Roger's the guy fixing the fences, right?
Right, and he constantly tells the narrator he's too soft. Roger's perspective is basically, if it can rip your arm off, it doesn't care how nice you are.
Which is incredibly valid.
It is. But the narrator isn't naive about the threat either. He doesn't confuse kindness with safety. He relies on redundant locks, 2 exits for every single gate, and, incredibly strict unbending routines.
Right, he builds physical defenses against literal monsters.
But here's the twist. His greatest vulnerability, the thing that terrifies him the most, has absolutely nothing to do with the sanctuary at all.
Oh, this part of the source material was so heartbreaking. It's his 12-year-old daughter, Samantha.
Yeah.
She's recently been diagnosed with severe seizures.
Hmm.
And the doctors, they're just struggling to find the right medication. She's collapsing unexpectedly at home.
And think about the narrator here. This is a man who can stand 20 feet away from creatures capable of ending his life in seconds. And he does it without flinching.
But he says his stomach knots up just seeing his daughter's name pop up on his phone.
Look at the contrast there. He is in complete procedural control behind those electronic locks. He dictates the environment.
But he is utterly helpless when it comes to his own child's neurology.
Helpless, and it's right in the middle of this intense personal anxiety that a highly unusual creature arrives at the sanctuary. And this creature, it acts as a strange catalyst for literally everything that follows.
Okay, yes. I got completely stuck on this detail in the source material. It's a crow, which, I mean, that doesn't sound like a cryptid at all, even if it looks a little strange.
Not initially, no.
Right. It's large, mostly black, but its chest and the lower half of his face are painted white. The narrator finds it bleeding near the loading dock on a freezing wet Tuesday. It had been shot with a low-caliber round.
And Roger, being the ultimate pragmatist, essentially says, what are you doing? Why are you going to spend the equivalent of $3,200 in time, anesthesia, and surgical supplies trying to save a doomed bird?
Yeah, why would a guy managing literal monsters risk his time and resources on a random crow?
Because Roger's just looking at the math. The bird has hollow bones, it's soaked through, it has a super weak heartbeat, but the narrator refuses to let it die.
Because he's projecting.
Exactly. He is projecting his need to save his daughter onto this fragile bird. He brings it into their specialized treatment room. He calls a vet named Wendy Parker, and she literally guides him through this incredibly delicate surgery over speakerphone.
Over speakerphone.
Right. It takes 2 hours of careful anesthesia and microscopic movements to extract a flattened bullet fragment, all without shattering the bird's skeleton.
And he actually manages to save it.
Yeah.
But like the morning after the surgery is when the story shifts from a veterinary rescue into something entirely impossible.
This is where it gets weird.
Really weird. So before operating, the narrator had emptied his pockets onto the counter to get scrubbed in. He put down his keys, his wallet, his phone, and a small, completely full plastic container of green Tic Tacs.
Just ordinary stuff.
The next morning, he comes in expecting the bird to have passed away in the night. Instead, it is alive, hopping across the concrete floor.
And that plastic container of mints.
Right. Every single green Tic Tac is gone.
Gone. But the container itself is the real anomaly here.
Yeah, because there are no cracks in the plastic, there are no bite marks.
Yeah.
The lid is still securely snapped shut. How does a bird consume solid objects through a sealed plastic container?
It's baffling.
Are we just projecting magical traits onto a weird-looking bird because it happens to be recovering inside a cryptid sanctuary? Or is it literally manipulating reality? It's like a street magician performing a locked-room mystery with a breath mint.
It completely defies physics. And the text, interestingly enough, never explicitly explains the mechanism of how the bird did it.
It just leaves it hanging.
Yeah, but this bird serves as a crucial bridge in the narrative. It's an anomaly even among the anomalies in the sanctuary.
How so?
Well, the narrator's compulsion to save this bird directly mirrors his desperation to protect his daughter. Both Samantha and the crow are fragile. Both are suffering unexpectedly.
Raja actually calls it an expensive hope.
Expensive hope. Choosing to care when it's entirely illogical and costly. And as the crow recovers, it doesn't just sit in a cardboard box. It begins to observe the sanctuary.
It flies out into the property.
Yes, and through the crow's interactions, we get to see the psychological depth of these other captive creatures. The mechanisms of how they operate are fascinating.
Like the wolf dog. That's a perfect example of why the narrator's philosophy of space and procedural perfection is so critical.
Oh, the wolf dog is terrifying.
Seriously, this is a massive creature bought from a Montana ranch after cattle started vanishing.
Not just killed, but vanishing without any drag marks.
Which is chilling. So the narrator keeps him in a 2-acre preserve with rolling hills, a creek, and a double-fenced safety corridor.
Because the wolf dog isn't just dangerous, he's calculating.
Right. Imagine walking into your backyard, and instead of a dog happy to see you, there is a 200-pound predator just, like, silently studying the way you hold your keys.
Studying your every move. That is this guy's Tuesday.
The narrator actually notes that regular predators, like grizzly bears, they react to what's happening in the moment. The wolf dog plans.
Yes, that distinction is key. When they go to feed him, he doesn't charge the fence. He walks with this unnaturally smooth, practiced stride. It's almost like he studied regular wolves but didn't quite get the imitation right.
Ugh, that is so creepy.
It is. He waits for permission to eat, takes his meat slowly, and watches every movement the narrator makes. He is essentially a prison auditor looking for a single procedural loophole.
So if the narrator forgets to double-check a latch or breaks routine even slightly,
The wolf dog will exploit it, absolutely.
now contrast that intense predatory calculation with Smallfoot.
Smallfoot is a completely different vibe.
Totally. Smallfoot is essentially a 3-foot-tall Bigfoot. The narrator rescued him after a logging operation broke his ankle.
And he can't be released because the moment someone filmed him with an iPhone, he'd become a target for hunters.
Exactly, so he has an acre of forest. But Smallfoot doesn't need physical containment as much as he needs constant mental stimulation to prevent, like, severe destructive boredom.
Right. Smallfoot is basically a super strong toddler treating life like an escape room.
He requires constant puzzle feeders and engagement. He steals Roger's pruning shears. He steals coffee mugs.
He even stole Roger's wallet.
Oh my gosh, yes. Which they found weeks later, perfectly hidden inside a hollow log with all the credit cards completely undamaged.
Which is impressive for a monster.
Right. To get the pruning shears back, the narrator literally has to negotiate a trade using a jar of peanut butter.
It's hilarious, but it really highlights the challenge. How do you even begin to assert dominance over creatures that are studying your every habit?
You don't assert dominance, you negotiate boundaries.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, both of these creatures require immense respect, but they require it in entirely different currencies.
Okay, I like that phrasing, different currencies.
Yeah, because Smallfoot needs intellectual enrichment. The wolf dog requires absolute procedural perfection, so he has nothing to exploit.
And noticeably, the anomalous crow, the one that ate the mints through the plastic, starts showing up at these enclosures.
Yes, it watches the wolf dog, and the wolf dog stares back, completely fixated, but making no move to attack.
It hangs out with Smallfoot too. It actually pecks at a pen Smallfoot stole from Roger. It's integrating itself into their weird ecosystem.
So for highly intelligent creatures like Smallfoot, containment is about mental boundaries and intellectual respect.
But how does this caretaking philosophy hold up when you remove intelligence entirely? When you're dealing with something that is just an engine of raw, unthinking consumption?
That brings us to the darkest, most heavily fortified part of the sanctuary, the containment for the Mongolian deathworm.
This setting is so radically different from the rolling hills and the aviaries. It is a literal military-grade bunker built into the side of a hill.
3-foot-thick poured concrete walls.
Inside, it's just thousands of tons of imported, climate-controlled desert sand. The narrator admits he hasn't actually seen the creature in 8 years.
8 years?
But every Tuesday, without fail, he wheels a cart with 40 pounds of meat to a painted red line on the floor. He drops the meat, backs away, and watches the sand fold inward.
And then what happens?
The meat vanishes, the buckets tip over, and it's gone. Any cameras buried beneath the sand are either completely crushed or dragged away within days.
It is an environment of absolute crushing isolation.
Here's where it gets really interesting, ethically speaking. The narrator's whole philosophy, like the core of his identity as a caretaker, is that an animal pacing in a tiny cage is a failure.
Right.
But isn't this bunker the ultimate sensory deprivation tank? It feels like he's playing God by burying a living creature under thousands of tons of sand and concrete. He's basically abandoning his own principles.
You're touching on the ultimate ethical paradox of his profession, and he doesn't shy away from it. He actively wrestles with it in the text.
He does.
Oh, yeah. He admits the bunker is a prison. But let's look at the alternative. If he releases a creature that blindly consumes anything that touches the sand, you are looking at mass casualties.
Okay, point.
He notes that curiosity has killed far more people than ignorance ever has, so he never steps past that red line. He doesn't test the boundaries to see if it's happy, because he knows it doesn't possess the capacity for happiness, only hunger.
So it's a brutal utilitarian calculation. He sacrifices his ideals for the greater good.
Exactly. He understands that true responsibility sometimes means bearing the heavy moral guilt of keeping a cage locked so that the outside world survives. He accepts the burden of being its warden, the villain in its story even, because there is literally no safe place on Earth for it to exist.
Wow. Okay, so the deathworm is hidden beneath the earth, isolated and blind. But there is another creature at the sanctuary that lives high above the ground, and it is hyper-attuned to the world around it.
More importantly, it is hyper-attuned to the narrator's own impending tragedy.
The Mothman.
Yes. It lives in this massive 35-foot-tall aviary designed like an oversized aircraft hangar, complete with artificial cliffs and ballistic glass skylights.
The physical description of the Mothman is wild, by the way. It doesn't have feathers. The text describes wings that look closer to velvet or tree bark, stretching maybe 12 feet across.
And it has these bright amber eyes that look like sunlight passing through old whiskey.
The narrator took it in after it got tangled in abandoned radio tower cables in West Virginia. Now, people always say the Mothman predicts disasters. You know, like the bridge collapses, the Mothman was there.
Pop culture loves that trope. But the narrator has 7 years of meticulous daily notes. He tracks weather, sleep schedules, feeding habits, and his data shows the Mothman doesn't possess some mystical foresight to predict a bridge collapsing.
It doesn't.
No, it reacts to impending physical trauma. If someone nearby is about to suffer a broken bone, a heart attack, an industrial accident, the Mothman becomes incredibly restless right before it happens.
How is it doing that? Is it magic?
It's likely a biological mechanism we simply don't understand yet. Think about how dogs can smell a drop in blood sugar before a diabetic crashes.
Oh, right, like a medical alert dog.
Exactly. The Mothman might be detecting sudden spikes in cortisol, olfactory shifts in the air, or even subtle electromagnetic changes when a human nervous system is about to misfire. It's sensing a biological cascade that, to us, hasn't happened yet.
Which sets the stage for the absolute climax of this account. One day, after locking up the Deathworm bunker, the narrator hears this long, hollow, terrifying scream echo across the property.
It's the Mothman.
And immediately, the crow, the one he saved, bursts into the air from the wolf dog enclosure and flies toward the front of the property.
And the narrator is filled with this inexplicable dread.
He sprints to his truck and races home. It's a 12-minute drive, and he says he doesn't remember a single traffic light.
Because he knows exactly what a scream from the Mothman means. A catastrophic physical trauma is imminent, and his daughter is home alone.
He pulls into his driveway and immediately sees the back gate is wide open. Samantha knows the rules. She never leaves the gate open.
So he runs inside.
The TV is on, there's a half-eaten bowl of cereal on the coffee table, and most terrifying of all, her phone is sitting on the counter.
Which is bad because they had a strict agreement that she keeps her phone on her at all times in case she feels a seizure coming.
Absolute panic sets in. He checks the house, the garden, the shed. Nothing.
He is losing his mind with fear, realizing the woods behind his house are just dense enough that if she had a seizure, fell, and hit her head, he might not find her before the elements or the injury took over. He's running completely blind.
But then he hears a sharp call. It's the crow. It's sitting on his mailbox. It looks at him, gives a specific call, and flies a short distance to a fence post.
It looks back and waits for him to catch up.
It calls again. It is deliberately leading him. He follows it across the backfield, past the garden, all the way to a hidden pile of storm-felled logs covered in tall grass, a place Samantha almost never goes.
The crow lands on the highest log and just looks down into the brush.
And that is where he finds her.
She had suffered a severe seizure, collapsed, and rolled down a slight slope. She was completely hidden by the bark and the tall grass.
She was breathing, but she was hurt and unresponsive. He admits in the text that if he had been searching on his own, without the crow acting as a supernatural search and rescue dog, guiding him post to post, he likely wouldn't have found her in time.
This raises an important question about the nature of symbiosis and how we view these creatures. Why did the crow do it?
Was it like paying off its surgical debt?
Maybe it's less transactional than that. The narrator spends his life saving these cryptids from a world that fears and misunderstands them. He builds them sanctuaries, he negotiates their boundaries, he treats their wounds.
He offered the crow that expensive hope.
Exactly. In return, the crow integrated him and his daughter into its flock. The completely unexplainable nature of these creatures, you know, the Mothman's ability to sense a failing nervous system and the crow's impossible physics-defying intelligence, it all ends up saving the one thing the narrator values more than anything else in the world.
Samantha actually recovers. The ambulance arrives. The doctors finally manage to adjust her medications correctly, and over the next few weeks, there's a massive improvement.
Life actually returns to a strange kind of normal.
The narrator goes back to work. He still empties his pockets before surgery, he still drops 40 pounds of meat behind the red line, and Smallfoot is undoubtedly still trying to pick the lock on Roger's toolbox.
But the crow,
It vanished. It was never seen again after the ambulance pulled into the driveway.
It had balanced the scales, its purpose was fulfilled.
So what does this all mean? Tomorrow, when you go about your normal day, maybe you're running errands, maybe you're literally picking up dog food at a local neighborhood pet store, listening to those bubbling fish tanks by the register, I want you to consider the unseen burdens people carry.
Yeah.
Consider how much of our reality requires quiet, dedicated caretakers holding back the dark or offering shelter to the severely misunderstood.
And I'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. If creatures capable of terrifying destruction, creatures that defy physics, calculate like prison auditors, and operate entirely outside our understanding of biology, if they can recognize kindness,
Right.
if they can learn boundaries and even repay a debt to a caretaker, what does that say about the monsters we write off in our own society? Maybe the things we fear most aren't inherently evil. Maybe they're just waiting for us to respect them enough to understand how they operate.